Hello YouTube, this is Morgan, Airspeed Prime here at my next Bionicle 2015 review. You've already seen my review of the three larger Toa sets, Kopaka, Tahu, and Onua. And now I'm back, I've got the other three Toa, so I can do my review of the three smaller Toa sets. So we obviously have Gali, Master of Water, Pohatu, Master of Stone, and Lewa, Master of Jungle. So these three are definitely interesting as well. Now, I suppose as a group, in general, they don't look as big or bulky as the other three sets. I'll do some comparisons between the kind of smaller ones and the larger ones later on in the video, but in general you can see that they don't have as many big parts, and they're kind of they definitely don't have as much big armor pieces. They do have an interesting selection of pieces in that Gali obviously has some interesting stuff on her shoulders up there. Pohatu goes for kind of more stuff on the knees, as does Lewa, but Lewa also has a more interesting kind of back design piece with those kind of shoulder pads that he has. And in general, they kind of roughly keep their looks from the original Bionicle, but Pohatu is obviously the most drastically different just because of the way he was built. Well, I'll do the comparison in a moment. What you get with them is obviously with Gali, you get a kind of silvery, gunmetal-y coloured skull spider, and the golden mask of water. With Pohatu, you get an interesting skull spider in that it's a kind of a navy coloured skull spider, but he's the only set where you actually get an extra kind of a foot piece, and you actually use the back connector point to make it a kind of scorpion thing, which kind of makes sense because he's the one of stone, so he's more about the desert, and makes sense that the spiders there would kind of be called scorpions instead, so that's interesting. And then finally, with Lewa, you get just a standard navy skull spider and golden mask of jungle. Here's the golden mask of stone. Don't think I mentioned that. But yeah, so it means that by the end of if you just get the 6 Toa sets, what you have is you have 2 of this color, 2 of this color, one of which is going to have an extra piece, and also 2 of this green color. So, and then I think it's roughly similar with all the protectors. So, yeah, that's a kind of quick comparison and quick look at the wave overall. So I'll go through them kind of one by one. I'll start with Gali since she was the first one I got. Okay, so here is a better look at Gali, Master of Water, or the Toa of Water. Here is what she looked like back in 2001. Definitely interesting. I don't have the card for her specific blue mask, but here's the red version of the cow as it's called, so that's interesting. And yeah, the difference in mask design, let me just take this off, is definitely one of the bigger ones in that the shape is way off, definitely. But you can still see the general kind of idea for the kind of scuba goggles. You can sort of see that on this mask that there is the kind of indents around the eye areas to kind of make it look like goggles. And the mouth bit does look, it kind of has vents for like breathing and stuff like that, similar to what this had. But yeah, other than that, it's definitely interesting. But she is the only female character of the group, and I think this mask actually does a decent job of actually kind of getting that across, that it is a more female design. And I think the main thing that shows that is just that it's the mask that kind of comes down to a point the easiest. I don't know why, but it's just one of those things that kind of really makes her just come across as a female character, because they don't do anything like crazy to show that, and they didn't really need to. But here's a general look. Actually take the big weapon out of the way for a second just to show off the figure, then we'll focus on the weapon. But yeah, you can see her general placement of armor pieces. The kind of solid blue, and then she actually has some slightly bigger armor pieces put on the side with these kind of spiky bits sticking out the side. I'm not specifically sure why. I suppose it's for those kind of swimming poses. It's to kind of add some aerodynamics to the water. But definitely adds something interesting to her there. Then with the armor pieces, just some standard silver, and then transparent blue for the shoulders. And then the big thing that they do with her, which is very similar to what they do with Tahu, but done slightly differently in that they orientate the armor bits the other way. It's just the way they do the shoulders. It's again one of these kind of double ball systems here, where the outer one is where the arm is attached to, and then the inner one, which swivels with the gimmick, has an extra armor piece attached by obviously. You can sort of see how it's done there, the piece, and then you attach one of these panels on, and then one of the new Bionicle armor pieces. And it's definitely one of the more interesting aspects of her look, just having these two bits on the side. And I suppose works kind of what they're going for, you know, the swimming poses. She's got some interesting lines when doing those swimming poses with the spikes on the legs and the big shoulder bits. But overall, very interesting. Like all of the others, she has some printing on the chest piece, which is, as usual on them, is fairly nice. But yeah, looking at it from the back. Like all of them, she has a kind of little back piece to just cover up some of the gearing and stuff like that on the back, because the backs of these Bionicle sets compared to the Hero Factory sets are a lot more complex. So this just adds to keep it more smooth. And yeah, other than that, her gimmick, the swivel kind of action feature, is just on one side. And the interesting thing with her is that she uses all yellow gears instead of the other ones, which will always use a yellow gear and then black gears for the middle, but she uses all yellow. So, and it's only on one side as well. The right arm moves like that, so that's fine. And again, with her, they add friction into the joint by having these two smaller gears here, kind of in behind the main torso bit. So it's those two gears there that keep the arm from just kind of falling down like this due to the gimmick. They keep it up until you actually want to move it down and use the gimmick. So that's that. And as ever, like all of the other ones, she does have the mask launch feature and the golden mask. So I'll put the golden mask on in preparation for adrenaline mode, but first of all, let's show off her main weapon, which is this trident here. Now this is what the top of it looks like. It's pretty big, almost looks like a giant axe, but it is meant to be more of a trident type weapon. And it's going to use the same parts that I'm going to show you with Lewa when I cover him, and a lot of yellow bits, and then here's the bottom section of it that plugs into the bottom of her hand. And again, it's got some interesting designs, as you'll see for the other mode. But yeah, that's what it looks like. Definitely this is a more kind of spear, harpoon type part, while this is more the trident section. I suppose it's not really a trident like that, because there's not really three sections. This is the trident part, but either way, it's a pretty cool thing. And then it's definitely one of the biggest weapons, just for one of the characters to hold in her hands. Like, using the gimmick with this thing, it's pretty crazy. It's because it's so long, it's just like nearly impossible to use, and it limits her posability when you're using this weapon, just because it's hard to position it in such a way where it's not just this massive lumbering weapon. But yeah, to change Gali into adrenaline mode, what you have to do is you take off both sides of the weapons. You put the bottom bit now in as the top bit, and then what you do with the bottom section is that you take these whole sections out. So what you do is you take this out and this off like that, and then this is just going to be the bottom of this trident. So as you can see, that's her new weapon for adrenaline mode. And then with these parts here, what you do is you attach these onto her feet in I believe it's this way you attach them onto her feet. Yeah, like this. Sorry, let me show this on camera. Okay, so you can see there's two pegs there. They're going to attach into two of the pegs on her feet, like so. There we go. And then the other one as well goes on that way. And there you kind of have her in her adrenaline mode, which is kind of the extreme sports mode that they kind of go for the characters when they have their mask on. Very similar to the Toa Nuva from I think 2002 or 3. And yeah, it's just meant to give her these kind of mermaid fin type things, or whatever, and it works pretty well. And I think another idea for this is that you actually do kind of link her feet together while you have this on, or something like that. With using these two red pegs. It doesn't really specify in the instructions anything about that, but it is something you can do if you want. Let me just do it. So obviously you use these two red pegs to attach it onto the well, actually there's no other reason for them other than this, so it's interesting. Maybe I completely misread the instructions, but yeah, I think the idea is that you just put these two bits on her feet and then attach them together like that, and then you have her swimming with this kind of bigger fin on her kind of feet or something like that, and that's what it's meant to be like for some sort of swimming pose. And she still has a weapon in her trident. But yeah, she is definitely an interesting figure. A lot of people are saying she's, of the smaller Toa, one of the best ones in the wave, and I'd you know, in terms of general look, she's probably the one that's just like, this is just an extremely solid figure, and nothing massively fancy about her, but she just works very well. The placement of armor pieces, the blue, the transparent blue, the kind of silver gunmetal-y pieces work. Maybe I would have preferred a little bit more blue, just because she is the kind of toe of water. Would have preferred a lot more blue. Maybe even more transparent blue overall, rather than more of this, but I still think it's a pretty cool character, one of the biggest weapons, and definitely a cool adrenaline mode feature to kind of rival, I suppose, some of the bigger sets. But yeah, what else? Anything else to mention about her that's unique? Not especially, just very solid. So yeah. Next, we'll move on to Lewa, which was the second of these smaller toes that I got. Okay, so here we have Lewa, Master of Jungle, or Toa of Air, whichever way you want to call it. Back in 2001, this is what he looked like, and he was Toa of Air rather than Jungle. No idea really why they changed it, felt the need to do it. I guess because he's green, and maybe a lot of people don't really associate green with air, I suppose. But anyway, main difference here obviously is that he used the one who definitely has the mask, which changed the most. It's really not similar, like, at all. Like, if I take it off, and there's not really much similarities between them, other than the fact that obviously there's kind of the two eye holes and the two cheek vents. This also has two cheek vents and two eye holes. Other than that, there's like no similarities whatsoever, really. This mask, for what it is it's fine. You know, it's an interesting design. It just, since otherwise it is so referential to the original Bionicle, I really don't know why they decided to go down this route with him. It's not even in any way similar to like the Toa Nuva version either. So for me, definitely this is probably the weakest mask design from the sets overall. The new Miru, as it's called. But yeah. And then other than that, the biggest similarity is that he returns to having axes as his main primary weapon. So, let's put this green mask back on. You obviously do get the gold Miru as well, Mask of Jungle. And yeah, here is Lewa. A little bit taller than the other Toa, as I showed you in these early shots, because he does actually have some kind of leg extender pieces here just at the top. So he is the tallest of the smaller Toa, and yeah, he has a kind of the armor bits on his knee pads, in addition to probably the most interesting gearbox build of all of the smaller Toa sets, with the way that you have these bits for his shoulders that are only a little bit posable, because this piece here is just a little angled kind of bracket that it's attached onto, so you can't actually move it like up and down, but you can move it side to side a bit, and in and out a little bit because of this joint here. You can see it move a little bit. So in terms of posability on these bits, you get about there, and like you can angle them a little bit like that. Really, you just kind of leave them there to get the best posability out of the head. But because of the way his gearbox build is done, it's kind of one of the ones where the gearbox is a bit higher up than most. His head is a little bit more limited than the others, but it's still like not awful. Like you can still get a decent range of motion out of it. It's definitely not enough to where I'd like instantly want to modify the build just to get more head range. Sure, he perhaps can't do the kind of looking kind of forward while tilted this way look that some of the other ones can do, but for what it is, it's fine. And I definitely appreciate the added complexities to this gearbox build. In terms of just a build, he's definitely the smaller Toa that is the most value for money in terms of interesting builds. He also has one of those pieces on his back as his kind of back protector bit, in addition to these interesting parts on the back of his arms, which are mainly there for his adrenaline mode. So he definitely feels the most value for money in terms of the interesting parts you get of the smaller Toa, but I think it's a big flaw that I don't like his mask as much as any of the other ones. But other than that, the color scheme I quite like. Not really sure why they went for this kind of almost yellowy orange color here as his kind of secondary color, and didn't just give him all extra silver. Definitely makes him kind of feel a bit more jungly, I suppose, light colored and stuff like that. But maybe not the best color choice decision. But other than that, he's got a fairly standard build compared to everyone else. It is just really that extra stuff on the gearbox to make these pieces at the side. Not really sure what they're for, that said, like what's so special about them, but makes his shoulders and look a bit different than the others. And his gear function works for both sides, so that's interesting. The only one of the smaller Toa to have both sides geared. And friction is added to his system on both sides here with the two extra smaller gears, which are just there to keep it from falling down when the arm is like this. It stays up normally, and if you move it, it moves. So that's great as ever. Other than that, not much else to say really about his build. I like that he kind of feels a little bit taller than the other ones. That's pretty cool. But other than that, all that's left is to really show off the weapons. So in both hands he has these weapons which use the Gali kind of axe head pieces / mermaid feet pieces as his small axe heads, and they work pretty well. And then they use a kind of a sword bit as the kind of remainder of the axe. Maybe aren't the best looking axes, but it's pretty cool to see an axe with some swords on the bottoms as well. It's a very interesting weapon nonetheless, and he has two of them in full, so definitely it's a very unique weapon for him. But his adrenaline mode is pretty simple to pull off. You just take the top bits of the axes out, take the bottom bits of the axes out, and put them in the top. So he just has dual katanas like his Toa Nuva version. And yeah, there's weapons, and then here's where these bits on the back of his arms come into play. This is where you attach these bits. So you have them in such a way where on the bottom of his arms they're kind of pointing down like this, looks a bit more aerodynamic, and you can sort of see already what they're going for. And then you do the same with this. So yeah, and that's really all they're kind of going for. It doesn't really say what way to pose his arms when they're like this. I think the general idea that they want is something like the 2003 Lewa, where you just put his arms out like wings, and that's his adrenaline mode to help him fly a bit, and then the two gears come into play a little bit. Flapping a bit, so that's fine. Definitely probably the worst adrenaline mode of all of them. I like that they gave the bottom pieces of his axes are kind of separate swords. I like that most of the Toa have that, where they have a weapon to use while they're using the big sections of their parts for some sort of an adrenaline mode type thing. And of course, I forgot to put on the gold mask, but there he is. That's how he looks with that on. And the other thing with this color is also that it kind of clashes the most with the gold, because it just looks so it just looks just a few shades off being the same color. But other than that, I do quite like Lewa overall. The lack of interest in the design of his mask is made up for by how unique these parts are, the different back piece that's used here, and just some of the different ways they attach things onto him. It's definitely very unique. But yeah, let's move on to the last small Toa, and that is Pohatu. Okay, so here we have Pohatu, and there's what his legs look like, and he is the smallest of all the Toa. Even Gali is larger than him, and I actually didn't notice this until just before recording the video. I kind of put all the Toa next to each other, and they weren't as big. And the reason for that, I think, is just because they give him a very small lower leg piece here, and obviously he's the only one with like real transparent leg pieces, I think. Except that Onua might have some transparent pieces, but yeah, anyway. Interesting things about Pohatu are, in addition to the fact that his legs are the shortest, he's the shortest of all the Toa, he uses one of these weapon pieces as his kind of back protector bit. He like Gali only has a function on one side of his arms, that being for his right arm, and other than that, he's also the only Toa with a asymmetric build. In the sense of his two arms are very different. One side of his left arm is silver paneling and then black bones. Then the other arm is, as you can see here, brown paneling with transparent yellowy green bones, with some spike details and obviously the use of this armor pieces again. So that makes him unique compared to the others as well. Like, he has this unique arm. And what I like about it is that it makes it come across as if he has a kind of bionic arm. Like, it sounds weird saying that about Bionicles, where they're basically kind of living machines already, that he has a separate bionic arm. But I kind of like the idea that this is his kind of really strong, powered up arm or something like that, the one with the transparent pieces in it. Because his weapons, as you can see, are basically boomerangs, so it makes sense that it, like, when he throws them from this arm, the one that has the feature in it, they just go super far, super fast, and it's crazy. While this arm is kind of just a standard arm, like the rest of the Toa. I just like the idea that he has this super arm with spikes and armor and super powerful, and then the other side of him is just, that's my normal arm. That's fine. His mask, let's do the comparison. Definitely one of the ones who, I suppose in general, body shape changed the most, in that he is the character who had the upside down build back in 2001, where the gear function would actually work for his legs, and he had the kind of really big parts in his feet to kind of kick the boulder that you got with him around, and had an interesting look in that he was bulkier on the bottom than the top. And they do keep that because, as you can see here, he does have the big knee bits that add a lot of bulk to his kind of knee section and the bottom of his legs. And it really makes just his legs look really armoured, with the whole silver kind of armour bit on his knee, then the shin armour bit, and then the same colour feet. So I like that as well. And in general, he kind of keeps that look. And I think people have like altered the build where they do build him upside down, and the gear function roughly works, but it's difficult to make the top section work just because of the way the main body bone pieces are orientated. But I do like him overall. In terms of the mask, again, there is a similar look here. It almost feels like Pohatu himself. The design went kind of upside down, in that what was I trying to make? You can sort of see that there's some lines in the mask here that make it kind of tilt down like that, while this one is more tilted up. But in general, you kind of get the kind of interesting similar eye sections. You got a little vent here, vent there. The kind of little two vent pieces on the sides of this one. You got the two vent pieces on the sides here. Little circle in the middle, little circle in the middle. Similar, but it's a nice design upgrade, I think. That's the Mask of Stone, or the Kakama, and then here's the gold version. Definitely the main colours that look the most similar, but they're off enough where it looks different enough. Now, what else do I want to talk about here? he has friction in his action feature, just like a lot of them, like Gali. Just it's in front of the gearbox, behind the main skeleton, the two gears that allow his arm to stay up without falling down. So that's that. Let's just put his gold mask on in preparation for adrenaline mode. Other than that, only thing to mention is... Okay, next up, his boomerang pieces. Very nice overall, nice look to them. They definitely instantly look like boomerangs. The tip has this Borak eye piece that's transparent. Same color as his kind of bone, his interesting bone pieces. It makes it look like that's his kind of energy. Add some sort of energy power to them, and I like that they're adjustable as well. That you get the sense that he can adjust them depending on how far he wants to go and still come back. And they just work pretty nicely. They add a little bit of posability. They didn't even need to do this. Like, they could have probably just made a kind of curved bit that looked like a big boomerang, and they did it. And yeah, you get two of them. With him, to convert him to his adrenaline mode, what you do is you just take the two boomerangs out of his hands. You take the weapon off his back, and just put that in his hand. I think they tend to put it in the bottom of his hand as a kind of dagger thing, but you can put it whichever way you want. You know, you can have him just use it like that, or you can, as they say, I think in the instructions, have it there in his hand and kind of have it be like a dagger type thing. And then what you do with the boomerangs you take off is you just stick them into the middle of his feet on one side and on the other side, and they basically create these kind of like, the idea is it's meant to be like these sand surfer things where like he creates a tornado with his stone powers and then kind of flies around in these tornadoes using these things, and it looks really cool. The fact that there's only these pieces on one side of each works well to kind of make this thing work. Makes them a bit hard to pose since they're so wide, unless you kind of do these kind of like stepped in front of each other type poses, but they are cool overall. It makes them look really cool. The weapon definitely feels like it just like, we need to give him some sort of a weapon, so let's just make the thing on his back a weapon piece, and then he can hold it as a knife type thing. But at the same time, it kind of works, you know, like you give him he's the asymmetric guy. He's the one guy who kind of like only has one weapon in this mode. He uses it in his super bionic arm and stuff like that, and flies around the place. So I think it's a pretty cool mode, even if it's maybe not the best. Still, all of them have really cool features overall, I think. But yeah, that is Pohatu more or less. There's a closer look at his chest design. Looks nice like the others. And in general, like these smaller Toas, let me just bring them all back in. I think they are definitely worth the money. You know, definitely there's not as much to them as the bigger Toa, but you don't kind of expect that. That's what the difference in price is for, to show that these guys are different. But they all still come out very unique. That Lewa's the tallest one. Pohatu, you can clearly see, is the smallest one here, a good bit smaller. Yet he's also the only asymmetric character with any sort of asymmetric build, basically, with his arm. Gali kind of comes somewhere in the middle, has unique shoulders and some kind of bigger weapons. Lewa has the interesting shoulder bits as well, and the interesting, as I said, back bit, and they just work. And then let me just bring in, I suppose, Tahu here. You kind of bring him in and you sort of begin to see the difference in size of these guys. Maybe I can't show them the best. I suppose I'll move Lewa out of the way and try and fit Tahu in there to show the difference in kind of size. And you see, even with his knees kind of bent, you can already see that he's a good bit bigger than the other ones in terms of, like, look at the size of his kind of two sword bits together as his lava board. Much more armor pieces, more gold armor pieces especially. You can see that none of these smaller sets have the gold on them, while the bigger sets do. That's interesting to me. And overall, you can see that with basically the whole group of them, that they all have their unique look. And I think that's overall really cool that by the end of them, there's no honest one where I like point out to one of the Toa and go, this is a really not a great figure compared to the rest. I have my favourites for sure. I've already said I prefer the larger ones to the smaller ones, but still, they're all fun, and it's just great to have them as a group together. I'm going to attempt to build a group shot here, but obviously my desk isn't the biggest, and these are pretty big figures when you have them all together. So I'm going to attempt to create some sort of a shot here. Excuse me while I just bring Onua in. Yeah. Here we go. Onua. What on earth am I trying to do here? I'll bring Pohatu forward more, Onua to the back, and everything's falling over. I guess this works okay, sort of. I'll just bring the camera back a good bit. So there you can sort of see the group together. Apologies for the bad camera work here, but there's only so much I can do. My camera has a really bad focus area, but yeah, there you can see them all together. All look very unique straight away, and I really like that about them. They just look amazing as a group together. All the different colors, all the different placements of armor, shapes, sizes. I definitely highly recommend Bionicle 2015 to anyone. At the very least, I would recommend getting your favorites. If you've got Bionicle before when they first came out in the Toa Nuva, just get your favorite one at the very least. Test out this new building system that they're using for Bionicle, and highly recommend it. Final thing is just, I suppose, to give my order that I'd kind of list them in. As you know, Kopaka, definitely my favorite, probably. Second place would probably be Onua, then Tahu, and then of the three smaller Toa, I'd probably say Gali is my favorite then, so she's fourth. Pohatu fifth, and Lewa sixth, probably. But fifth and sixth are very close. I wasn't expecting to like Pohatu as much as I did, but I really liked that he actually was a lot shorter. I ended up really liking the asymmetric build and stuff like that, so that's why he comes in ahead of Lewa. But yeah, that is the review for Bionicle 2015. My next one probably won't be until the new sets come out in the summer, and even at that, the only one I probably want to get is the Mask Maker set with Akimu. But other than that, that's been the review. In the comments, let me know what your thoughts are on Bionicle 2015. But otherwise, thanks for watching, and bye.